Welcome to the Mountain View Pure Podcast, where your journey to exceptional water quality begins. Here's your host, Dan Toth, owner of Mountain View Pure Water. They proudly serve homeowners in the Tri-Cities and beyond, offering advanced water and air purification solutions that support a healthier lifestyle. The mission is clear, helping you get great water.
In this enlightening episode, we welcome medical expert Dr. Denise Sibley to discuss the health risks associated with water contaminants and the impact that they have on your well-being. You might be surprised by the dangers lurking in untreated water. Welcome back, everyone. Skip Monty, co-host / producer, back in the studio with Dan Toth and Dr. Denise Sibley. Dr. Sibley, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Skip.
Thanks.
Hope you're doing well today.
Doing all right.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. Well, Dan, we've got a special guest with us here in the studio. So if you don't mind, why don't you tell us a little bit about what she's going to be talking to us about?
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Denise Sibley. She is a local doctor and a customer of Mountain View Pure Water. Mm-hmm. Back when I met Dr. Sibley about 4 years ago, I came to her home to do a water test, just like I do for anyone who calls Mountain View Pure Water. I talked to her and her husband about all the contaminants in the water and how they can effectively remove those things. As I was getting to the end of the presentation and showing them the different products and options that they had, Dr. Sibley revealed that she was an internal medicine doctor and had been for 30 years at that point. And I kind of was taken back and I said, "Oh, did I say everything correctly?" And she said, "Yes, I'm very pleased with how you presented it and you told me the truth." And I was pretty glad about that because I hadn't talked to many doctors to get their perspective on my presentation and the things that I was telling people. And so when we got to the point of figuring out which products she wanted, she said, "Oh, I want the whole house system and I want this reverse osmosis system." And her husband shouted from the other room, "And I want an ultraviolet sterilization system." And I thought, I said this out loud. I said, "Well, why do you want that? You're on city water." And Dr. Sibley put her hand on my hand and said very quietly, "He's a pathologist. Just get him the system he wants." And so we ended up installing a whole house system with ultraviolet sterilization and a reverse osmosis in their home.
Wow.
And I bought 2 more systems for other family members. I was so happy with my system.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, Dr. Sibley, from a medical perspective, what are water contaminants?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I'm a board certified internal medicine physician. I've been in this area for 35 years. And COVID landed in my lap in 2020. It was a God thing. And that sort of opened my eyes to a lot of things I hadn't thought about. And I was thinking about all of the different toxins and poisons that we're exposed to. Some people have called it the great poisoning. So COVID itself, as we know now, even from the White House page, it was released from a lab. And then the shots had a poison in them. And then we have poisons from the air, poisons in the water, we have poisons in the soil. And I became aware that my drinking water, even though it was city water, municipal water from Johnson City, it didn't taste right. It tasted like my swimming pool, the chlorine. And I was concerned about the contaminants in it. For the first time, I'd really started looking at all these things that were affecting us. And as most homes are, most medical decisions are made by the wife or the mother in a home. And so I was the one that went in search of water purity. Dan was actually the third person that I had contacted. And the other guys, they just looked at me, this blank stare, what my questions, they had no idea what I was talking about, what I wanted and why. And when Dan came, he knew what I wanted and why, and was conversant scientifically even for what I wanted. One was the taste of my water, the chlorine. Why is chlorine bad? It affects the taste. I don't want to be drinking chlorine. When you're taking a shower, for instance, when you heat up the water, the off-gassing of the chlorine is released and it can affect your throat. If you're a singer, which I am a singer, it can affect your voice, your lungs. But really, it's the aluminum, the fluoride, the organophosphates, the microplastics that I'm concerned about in the water. And I wanted those gone. And I feel that if you could do one thing for your health, positive thing, it would be to have a proper water filtration unit. I had tried some little refrigerator pitchers through the years. I felt it was time to really take charge. I asked for the whole house carbon filter. We wanted the UV light for pathogens because this great poisoning was taking place. I felt our water supply was vulnerable to pathogens. With Hurricane Helene, we had that up close and personal where my daughter lives in North Carolina. They had to boil water for months. They just lifted it months ago. It was for a long, long time. And because she had the UV light, she didn't have to do the boil water. It has implications for the cleanliness of your water and the pathogens that would be like bacteria and things that could make you sick from the water. The fluoride was an issue. It's a neurotoxic agent. That means it damages your brain. The CDC has said that fluoride decreases children's IQ by 4 points. It affects adults as well. Too much fluoride leads to fluorosis in the bones, the teeth, pineal gland, and it's a neurotoxic agent for us adults as well. It probably contributes to dementia and Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative diseases. So I wanted that gone. And then just looking at the purity of our Johnson City utility district, I just looked it up again today. There are 9 contaminants that in our Johnson City water, they're above the standards of the Environmental Working Group. And some of them are significantly over, like 275 times the acceptable limit. And that is the haloacetic acids. And so, there's total trihalomethanes is 171 times the acceptable limits. There's all kinds there's 18 contaminants total in our Johnson City water that's from the municipal system today. So you're drinking those. Yes, I'm on city water, but it's not a pure water. And that's what I wanted. And that's what Dan was able to install.
Well, you mentioned chlorine and fluoride. What are some other long-term health issues associated with chlorine? I mean, because everybody's got chlorine and fluoride in their water if you got city water.
Well, chlorine, it's not good for your lungs.
We're now using bromide. It's been an interesting transition that the municipal water treatment plants have been using for sanitization. 10, 15 years ago, it was all chlorine. And then they moved to chloramines, where you add ammonia to chlorine, which we all have an understanding that that's a poison.
That's right. That's bad.
And they used that because it saved them some money, and it worked further on down the line because chlorine will naturally dissipate after a certain amount of time and distance. But the chloramine didn't dissipate. It actually had to interact with something. Do you have any concepts on whether that can be something that would harm us in any way as we ingested the chloramines? I remember that it's in the same time period, 5 to 10 years ago, that this big understanding about how our digestive system and our microbiome was being affected. We don't have anything definitive on that. It kind of correlates. And so chloramines were exchanged out just recently for bromide. And if you understand where bromide comes from, it's in the halo group on your periodic table. You have bromide, chloride, fluoride, and iodine are the halos. So they just changed out one thing that had maybe a bad reputation as being a sanitizer for another sanitizer. So maybe it sounds a little bit better to certain people who aren't aware.
But we know that the bromides are bad in bakery goods. I mean, that's something you should avoid. So the other thing that really concerned me in the water supply was the aluminum. Because if you just buy your standard water filter, it's not going to get rid of the fluoride or the aluminum. The reverse osmosis is the gold standard for removing that. Aluminum should not be in your body. We have no recommended daily allowance of aluminum, but yet our water contains aluminum. We might cook in aluminum pans, in Teflon, in some ceramic that has aluminum coating. And we know that aluminum is falling from the sky. We know that aluminum is in the soil. because Monsanto has made aluminum resistant seeds. So obviously there was a reason they had to do that. But aluminum should not be in your body. And our water has aluminum in it. It is a direct neurotoxic. It's a neuroinflammatory substance. We get a lot of aluminum from injectable things called vaccines, and they use that as what's called an adjuvant. So it would stimulate the immune response to an injected vaccine. So aluminum can enter your body that way, and it's very neuroinflammatory. So aluminum is very bad for your brain, probably bad for your gut microbiome as well, but it's very, very bad for your brain. And we don't require that. Iron we do require, copper, yes, but not aluminum. And that's one thing I wanted out of my water as well. And reverse osmosis, as far as I understand it, is the gold standard for removing fluoride and aluminum, which are very difficult to remove.
Wow.
I love the RO. Now, one thing about, as a medical suggestion, the reverse osmosis is a wonderful thing, and I think it tastes very smooth, and it's very good water to drink. It does remove some of the metals or the things that you might need, like magnesium. So I would suggest that you take a magnesium supplement, not magnesium oxide, one of the other ones, magnesium threonate, magnesium citrate, one of the other magnesium products, but that is one that you probably want to replace if you have a reverse osmosis system. But the reverse osmosis is a wonderful way to remove toxins, and it's my understanding that it also removes microplastics. And, there's a couple of recent studies and things out there that say we have the equivalent of a plastic spoon sized amount of microplastics in our brain.
I
We
feel
have
like
no
sometimes I have too.
dietary allowance or RDA for microplastics. So microplastics are in our municipal water. And that's the municipal water, as far as I understand, uses a flocculating agent with aluminum. So that's another source for aluminum that we don't want in our water. But the microplastics are a big problem because there's so many plastics thrown away. They're in our water, they're in our sea, and they're leached from bottles, plastic water bottles, and everything that we store, all the plastic storage containers, everything is plastic, plastic, plastic. That's why I have my glass water bottle, and I store things in glass. I never put anything. I really don't use my microwave much anymore, but I would never put anything plastic in my microwave like I used to. So, microplastics are another thing that concerned me, that I feel like my water system tries to get rid of.
So reverse osmosis sounds like is the most effective way to remove waterborne pathogens and chemicals. Aluminum, that's so scary. It's like,
Yes,
I had no idea there's aluminum in our water.
there is aluminum in our water, and that is, again, unbound aluminum does not occur in nature, and it should not be in your body. Now, we have lots of aluminum bound to things, aluminum structures and aluminum pots and pans, which I've gotten rid of, and but you should not have aluminum, and it is affecting people's brains, and we want that out. And we know that aluminum, I'm in a space where last year in the General Assembly, I gave testimony on our what was called geoengineering. It's stratospheric aerosol injection legislation, and we were the first state in the United States to ban the intentional release of substances into the stratosphere and atmosphere. And I know that aluminum is being sprayed in the stratosphere, and that is for solar radiation modification. What does that mean? It means they are spraying aluminum to try to make a mirror effect in the upper stratosphere so that we can block the sun and make it reflect back. And that's so that we can reach the limits that were established with the Paris Climate Accord, which said that we will not raise the temperature of the earth more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so they want to block the sun and reflect it back. And what better way than with a metal? And aluminum is one of their favorite metals. They also use cadmium, barium, They also spray sulfur dioxide, silver iodide. But, they spray a lot of things in the air. But aluminum is raining down on us, and it's in the soil. That's where the soil aluminum comes from. And that's why Monsanto had to invent an aluminum resistant seed. So I know that some people call it a toxic soup we live in. And I'm aware of this. I didn't used to be, but it has taken hundreds of hours of study on my part, which COVID was the big wake up call for most of us. It's accelerated in terms of what is being added to our atmosphere, our water, and the toxins that are out there. So I think we should be aware and, as much as we can, guard our family and our own health. One of the best things you can do for your health is to have a pure water source. Another thing that I've had to learn about is called the Zeta potential. So what's the Zeta potential of water? Well, the Zeta potential is the ability of the dispersion of water and chemicals within the water and to suspend them without clumping. So if the Zeta potential is impaired, things will clump in your blood. And the Zeta potential of water, if it's affected by a lot of positive charges, such as charges from metals, charges from aluminum, charges from fluoride, a lot of the heavy metals, vaccines, spike protein, you name it. There's a lot of things. Even well water can have these metals in them, and they can have positive charges, and that impairs the Zeta potential within your body. And what that does is it allows things to have the potential more likely to clump and not flow through your blood as well as it should. Maybe the blood cells clump. What would that give you? Well, that would give you a microclot or a little blood clot or a big blood clot, a stroke, a heart attack. And a lot of the vaccine injuries we're seeing do relate to microclotting. So trying to restore the Zeta potential by deionizing your water, which is what reverse osmosis does. It takes out those positive charges. And, that's a big word, sounds very like physics, but that restores the Zeta potential so that within your blood, the water can get into your cells better, can hydrate your cells better. It can restore the flow of your blood cells within the serum, the plasma. And so I think that's one of the best things you can do is to restore the Zeta potential of the water within your body by deionizing all of the things that are coming at your body with these positive charges and trying to get rid of those positive charges. So that's another thing that I'm learning about and have learned. And I feel like that's a restorative process for a lot of people.
And removing stuff from the water, essentially, this is one of the things that I tell all of my potential customers, actually helps you to hydrate, which is the reason we drink water. So the less stuff that's in the water, the more bioavailable it is for your cells to be hydrated. And I think that would be a summary of what
absolutely.
you just said.
Yes. And you remove the bad stuff, whether it's positive charges, the bad substances, and you're better able to get real water hydrated to your cells and across the membranes to get your blood flowing better and your circulation flowing better.
And that's all on the same lines with the more oxygen that our bodies can absorb, the more healthy we will be.
Absolutely. So, your blood carries the oxygen. So all that fits together with maintaining a healthier system. You have a big plumbing system. If you laid all your vessels end to end, it's huge. The way God made our body is just fearfully and wonderfully made. And we need to keep that plumbing system working inside of our body. This is one way I think we can support it better to be able to heal itself and to provide the proper nutrition with clean eating and clean water. Those are things that you can do that make a huge impact on your health. I get no kickback from him. I speak on my own pleasure at having clean water and the security of having clean water, so much so that I bought the system for 2 other family members. It is a good investment. It is one of the best investments you can make. And yes, it is an investment, but if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. That expensive vacation or cruise or whatever you can't go on it because you don't feel good. So I think it's a great investment in this time of thinking about what's in our environment and how we can deal with it, because we do have to take things into our own hand. Can't wait for Johnson City Water District.
Well, that brings another
Yes.
point. The standards for drinking water have not been updated in almost 20 years. Now, that doesn't make sense if we have ongoing research that shows things are more and more contaminated than we thought. You would expect to have standards follow that, and it just isn't the case. And so we definitely need to take control of our own health and make sure that we are taking precautions where needed.
Absolutely. And when you look at the EWG water report, it's not good. It's not good at all. And it's concerning. We have things in there that you would not, if you read it on a label, you wouldn't drink it. But yet you are every time you're turning on your faucet. I have a dedicated faucet, and thank goodness it also runs to my refrigerator. So I have ice that's clean.
Figured that out.
And I have clean cold water that comes out of my refrigerator. So the reverse osmosis is under my sink in the kitchen. So that's where I mainly use it. But the rest of the house has the UV light and the extensive carbon filtration. And that, as I understand it, the extensive carbon filtration helps the reverse osmosis to be the most effective. And you know, because it removes some things as well.
The whole house system removes a lot of things. I would say a large amount or a large percentage of the contaminants before it ever gets to the reverse osmosis. The reverse osmosis is doing an even greater job than if we were to assess it compared to the raw water.
Right.
There's even more removed.
And one of my family members has a well. So we have a well too, even though they do have access to city water. But, you know, there were contaminants in that as well. And so, you know, you might say, well, I have well water and I'm fine. Well, you might want to check your well water. But it's proved to be, you know, we actually have to change her filter a lot more than my filter. Yeah. So, you know, this is a great, I feel very confident in the health effects and dealing with, you know, we've all been back, or maybe not all of you have, but, you know, before 2020, I took vaccines, I gave vaccines. I thought they were great. I followed the CDC. I never did my own research, but, you know, just to deal with all the, say, vaccines that I've had in my life, I think it's a great way to deal with. The RO is the reverse osmosis is one way that people have even thought that there's some detoxification. And, you know, that's a couple of us medical folks feel that way. I can't bring you a study that says it, but we feel like it's important for detoxification. And if you understand what's going into our city water, so everybody's taking medicines, and all those medicines are being peed out into the toilet. They're going into the water supply. All the contraceptives, all the everything. I mean, everything's going in there. And, you know, it's being kind of given back to you, supposedly cleaned up, but there's a lot of endocrine disruption. Which, you know, that can occur.
What would that be?
Endocrine disruption. So now it can affect women in their menstrual cycles. You might have young girls who get their periods early, go through puberty earlier, young males who go through puberty earlier, which we have seen. We've seen the puberty age drop and drop and drop in our country. Nobody really ever studies why. But one of the things we know, there's endocrine disruptors in our environment and certainly in our water and in plastics and in a lot of things. But so puberty, menstrual cycles, menstrual regularity, fertility of women, fertility of men, their sperm production, their sperm mobility. So it affects fertility and being able to have a family. So it's a huge thing. That's a big thing. Because our birth rate is not improving. In fact, in many areas of Europe, they are way under replacement birth rate. I think we're right at replacement or slightly under replacement. And that means, you know, if there are two people having children, then, you know, two people would replace the two people. So you'd want a fertility rate of 2.0. And in a lot of places, it's 1.2. Or in Japan, it's less than that. So we have something going on with our fertility. And this perhaps is one way to deal with it. I think that we can take things into our own hands.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Sibley, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your expertise. This is a fascinating subject and so important. This has been incredibly informative to me. I feel like the Tin Man. I've got aluminum and contaminants and plastics flowing through my body. So we'd love to, if possible, get you back on the show and perhaps go a little deeper into contaminants.
Sure. We haven't even talked about PFAS and PFAS.
Maybe we can talk about that next time.
Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Y'all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for joining us on the Mountain View Pure podcast. When you're ready to transform your home's water and air quality, call or text 423-218-9361 for a free in-home consultation. For more information, visit mvpwater.net. Remember, great water is the foundation of a great life.